All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Battle of the Assessments round 2. If you missed round 1, you're going to have to go back. We recorded a couple weeks ago and aired. Here's why we're here and why we're having a battle. I've been a learning development HR practitioner for almost 30 years. And part of what I do is assessments. I'm an expert in DISC, and today I'm representing a PR6, which is a different assessment. But the reason this came to me is because I get so many questions about what's the difference between this one and that one, and when should I use that, and can I do this one in 10 minutes, or I have a 3-day offsite. So I know that a lot of my colleagues are the same, and so we thought we'd have a little fun with unpacking the differences between a few of the assessments and helping you really to learn sort of where the strengths are, what they're meant to do, so that you can make the right decision for yourself as a leader, or perhaps for your team or your organization. But we will, have a little fun. We'll battle it out. We'll see who wins today. There's no prizes. I don't know. Maybe we'll take a vote with the audience later on. Basically, how this is going to work today is we're going to just share with you a few different things about each of our assessments. I've invited a great panel of experts here, each representing a different assessment. So we're going to kick off by asking them to introduce themselves and set the stage for the battle by telling us why, first of all, what assessment you're here to talk about, and why is that one the best. Okay, so no pressure. Lori, I'm coming to you.
All right.
Tell us about you a little bit and why you're here today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jen. And I'm so excited to be here. Assessments is like one of my favorite topics to talk about and work on with my clients. So I'm an executive coach. I'm also a certified Hogan instructor and consultant. And I love using the tool with my clients. I spend a lot of time in executive coaching engagements, working with leaders cross-industry in both the corporate and private equity space. And I really help them try to figure out how do they really elevate their leadership and also have better conversations across the organization. So I use Hogan all the time, and I think it's the best, of course, because this is a battle. So it is the best because it is a reputation-based tool, meaning it shows a leader not only how they think they're showing up, but how others perceive them. And when you think about influencing and building trust in an organization, like that's really, really what matters. So huge fan, but also excited to explore other tools because as I said, love assessments. So looking forward to hearing from Julie and Dale and Jen today.
I love just that one. That's what I'm hoping the audience gets today. It's some little snippets. So reputation-based tool. I didn't know that about Hogan, and I love that just sort of frame because it right away is like, oh, I can see how that would be different from some of the others as well. So awesome. Okay, Dale, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dale Klasko, and I am the VP of People at Formation Bio, which is a tech-enabled pharma company. And I have the joy of facilitating insights discovery fully for my company. I don't have clients outside of my organization. And so I'm able to really use it to drive team effectiveness, business outcomes, et cetera. Insights discovery is a color-based framework. There's 4 colors, which we can talk about as the session progresses. But because it's so colorful is why I think it's the best. More importantly, though, the colors really define a model that helps us understand ourselves and others in the workplace. And what's so great about it is it creates a really sticky language that's really easy to remember that helps people, break down barriers in the workplace. And I think it becomes a very usable tool that does what I described, drives team effectiveness and increases self-awareness.
Well, I will say you have a bit of an advantage from all of us already because we are all independent consultants. So people may think we're saying it's the best because we want to sell them something, and you're actually not here to sell them anything. So, note to salespeople, she's actually talking about this because she believes in it. So.
True.
Awesome. Okay, Julie, let's hear from you.
I'm so excited to be here for many of the same reasons that Lauren and Jen and Dale mentioned. I love assessments. I think anything that can help us understand ourselves better and work with one another more effectively is a big plus. That said, it can be very confusing. I work as a consultant right now, but my past experience has been with big, large companies. And I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but I have sometimes had someone come to me and say, can you do something fun with our team? Fun, I'm all about fun. It's great to have fun, but what we always want to redirect to is, what are you trying to accomplish with your team, and how can we help your team be more effective? I'm here to represent the Herman Brain Dominance Inventory. And Dale, like Insights, it's very colorful and sticky in that way. But what we want to be sure we do is not get too attached to the colors. What the Herman Brain Dominance measurement helps us to see is how we think about things and how we can think with more of a whole brain by tapping into the preferences of other people on our team.
So yours, Julie, is one that I know the least about. So truly, I am here for myself to learn today as well. So I'm really glad you said yes to joining this.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll round it out. So in battle 1, I represented Everything DISC, which is truly my heart and soul and passion. I've been facilitating it for 23 years. In fact, I've sort of used it as sort of a counter approach because I chose not to get certified in any other assessment for a really long time because I believe in the impact of it so much. And then about 2 years ago, I started getting really, really interested in resilience. And resilience was showing up in, everywhere. And I was finding that I was getting really annoyed because I felt like it was becoming a buzzword and misused, overused, used everywhere you could possibly be. And so I went looking for what does this actually mean and how do we measure it? Like, how do I even know if I have it? And so I would say that's why when I landed on, I finally broke my, 23-year, I'm not getting certified in anything else rule, got certified in the PR6. What I love about it is it takes a belief that I have, which is resilience is not a character trait, it's a practice. And it puts some data behind that to sort of demystify what that is. So I'm excited to share more about that today from that lens because it's a new lens that I'm looking through. Okay, so let's get into a little bit deeper. So first question, what does your tool measure that other assessments typically miss? Open it up to the crowd here.
Jen, I'll jump in if I may, since you mentioned that HBDI is a measure you're not as familiar with. It has an interesting history. It was developed by an engineer at General Electric who became fascinated with how people think about solving problems and how different thinking styles sometimes conflicted with one another and prevented people from seeing things more holistically. So he made a deep study of this. And what HBDI measures that some of the other tools that I've been certified in spends a little less emphasis on is how we think. It does have the same 4 colors as DISC, just to make things super confusing for people, right? Many of the same colors as Insight, but the colors are less important than thinking about how you think. Are you more analytically focused? Do you think about the form and structure of things? Are you more focused on feelings? Or are you more of an experimental thinker? And the bottom line is we generally have more than one area that is true for us. So we are very careful when we're using HBDI not to think about, well, you're an analytical, you're a blue. You're instead thinking about where do you orient yourself and how does that connect with people that you work with very closely, a pair, for example, or with an entire team.
So can I ask one quick follow-up and might come up with the others as well is, so does that mean that it's like contextual? So you may apply analytical thinking to a particular, sort of setting, but not so much over here? Or is it like everywhere you go, there you are?
Well, everywhere we go, we tend to have a preference. Critically, this is not necessarily saying that this is the only way of thinking that you're good at. So and I think this is true for DISC as well. I might be very oriented in a D kind of style in DISC, but I know how to access the other styles when it's appropriate. Yeah. So it is though a pretty stable preference, and the retest reliability is very strong.
Okay, great.
It sounds like Insights is somewhat similar to HBDI. It's also really rooted in preferences and stylistic differences. And similarly, the idea is that everybody has all 4 of the color energies. It's just the way in which they show up is what makes each person a little bit different. And so the whole framework focuses a lot on just behavioral adaptability and how to flex your preferences or adapt in order to meet the needs of other people. We said similar colors. It's rooted in the psychology of Carl Jung, and so I think it really helps people who are familiar with things like introversion or extroversion to like quickly understand how some of these elements show up in the workplace. And then again, those colors I think really help people adopt that common language in which they can speak to it.
And Dale, Insights is the Lego blocks, right?
Yes.
Okay, I remember.
And I'm kicking myself because they're on my desk, and I should be holding them right now, so we can pretend that they're here.
Pretend. I remember the first time I was consulting actually with Twinings Tea, and I walked into their office, and everybody had this stack of Lego blocks, and they were all in different orders. Yeah. I did not know why. I thought people were just playing with them and assembled them in different things. And so I loved the visual sort of cue and shortcut that was, especially as a new person sort of coming into that organization to like right away gain some understanding of, okay, what is this person looking for? So maybe you can share with us a little bit more in a minute about how those work.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, Lori.
Yeah, I was going to say what I really love about, and I'm familiar with the Herman brain instrument and Insights that I use it with clients. And what I appreciate about it is it gives access to like, okay, we might lean this way, but we can still have access to every color, every part of that circle. And I think that's really a powerful insight to say, okay, how do we adapt? Now we have to be more intentional. Certainly, but I really appreciate that framework, and I do use both with clients. Where Hogan is just a little bit different, I would say, it kind of, and also for a different purpose. Hogan, I would say, is a more comprehensive tool in just terms of like the amount of data, and it gives the leader 3 different views. The first view is strengths. How are they showing up on an everyday basis? Where do they lean in terms of their strengths and capabilities? And then secondly, like, what are the things that can get them off their game? And these are typically responses to stress, pressure, change. Of course, nobody experiences any of that these days. So what are those things that, and oftentimes they're like overused strengths in some cases. And the third lens is values. So what are driving some of these behaviors and their decisions? So what makes Hogan unique is it takes all these lenses and it tells like such a comprehensive story. And that's the kind of awareness that really helps people shift and move.
I remember the first time I saw go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm sitting here wanting this assessment for myself, so I might have to.
Let's do it now.
Right? Like, those 3 categories just seem super insightful.
I mean, don't tempt me with a good time.
I remember, Lori, the first time I saw a colleague and saw a Hogan report, I was like, I mean, I need to go and set aside a couple hours. So truly what you just said in terms of depth is I know that there are just like so many layers to that. I mostly have seen it used, correct me if I'm wrong, but often in the context of an executive coaching engagement.
Yeah, I think and I think we'll talk about that. I think that's when it's best used for. It's best used for leadership development over a longer period of time.
Okay.
A laser coaching session, not going to be as sticky. I wouldn't use it then, but absolutely, that's when executive coaching engagements are ideal.
Okay, great. And then also Julie made the comment about fun. I know we're all up for a good time, and I'm sure you're the same as me. Nothing triggers me more than someone who just reaches out for like, hey, we're looking for a fun activity. And it's like, yes, I can do that. I'm all for fun. You will have fun in one of my workshops, guaranteed, money back guarantee. And that sort of like shot in the arm kind of, vibe that people get. I'm just super clear with people. Like, it makes no difference. It just makes no difference. So if you're looking for something with more lasting change, I think any of these assessments can do it. But I think that's an important framework for people to think about is think beyond the offsite is
yes.
like to think about them.
Yeah.
So the PR6 is a little different, which actually I know we're supposed to be battling it out, but I'm going to make this like a yes, both and kind of conversation. Because the PR6 basically it's a personal resilience report, and it measures resilience on 6 domains. It essentially measures how we handle stress, change, and recovery. And it combines sort of the mindset, behavior, and biology kind of all into one. So it's a fairly, quick online assessment, but the report gives you sort of a snapshot into your strength, I guess, capability in 6 areas. So vision, composure, reasoning, tenacity, collaboration, and one that I think is most often overlooked in the workplace is health. So that really also really spoke to me when I think about a lot of the clients that I work with. So I would say that if you think about like sort of work style preferences, right, that each of your assessment kind of does, and that kind of in depth, how you think and stuff like that. This is this could be an easy layer in addition to that about how are you, what's your sort of current level of capability in each of those particular areas. So it's a kind of a totally different cut than the other personality assessments or like DISC, which is what I do. And it's about like giving you that insight, but then also it's like, what are the actions I would take based on where my score is at. So that's a little bit about the PR6. So
Jen, when do you find yourself recommending DISC to the people who approach you versus PR6? And are you ever recommending both?
So because the PR6 is new for me, where I think it's going to fit squarely is again this momentum that there's a lot of like, let's build resilient team, let's build resilient organizations, right? And like, what does that mean? So right now people are saying, okay, in the face of constant, hiring and layoffs, right? And all the macro influences that are happening. So where I think that it fits is like certainly DISC and all the different, there's DISC sales, DISC management, DISC workplace, all the different profiles. DISC is great when you come in and you kind of go team by team to really help them understand themselves, each other, and then, maybe their customers better depending on what you're doing, or managers, how they're going to lead their team. And it's very much oriented to a great workshop, collaborative, energizing, kind of experience. On the PR6, I have it as an executive team or a senior leadership team sort of program, because that's where I think in terms of like modeling the way is that if leaders are willing to take that deeper cut, right, we're not just going to get up there and say we need to be a resilient organization, but we're actually looking at, where we have those overused sort of skills or things that we're not paying attention to, then we can start to use those insights to kind of drive change and set the example for the organization. So I think a lot of the PR6, it's all about like that personal reflection and that personal action plan, which is why it's becoming a great integration again into my executive coaching engagements. Thanks for asking that question. Because we're talking about that, because I said resilience has come up a lot, but also risk is another thing that's coming up, I think, right now. There's just, the world of work is changing so quickly. So I'm curious about how is risk or resilience defined within your framework of the assessments that you do?
I can start. I think, when I think about this question, the thing that came to mind for me with insights is that when we kind of walk through the framework and educate folks on what it entails, we spend a lot of time talking about how the color energies can show up on a good day and a bad day. And you can think about this in terms of like our greatest strengths can also be our greatest weaknesses. And those are the things, again, that we have to raise that self-awareness on to mitigate risk and also like help navigate challenges in the workplace. And so on a good day, like a color energy will reflect someone's greatest strengths. One of the colors is fiery red. If you're fiery red on your best day, you're decisive. You are like moving things forward and getting things done. On a bad day, these traits can show up really differently, right? So on a bad day, someone who's fiery red might be aggressive or dismissive. And so really like raising the awareness around how these color energies manifest in the workplace, I think is a really critical tool in actually managing risk and helping teams understand, why someone might be acting a certain way on a given day.
I love that. not to be called out as a fiery red or a high D or anything, but I literally had a t-shirt made about that, with sort of like on one side, on the back of the t-shirt, it has like, on the left side, it's all the good stuff, which is like decisive, inspiring, right? And then on the right side, it was like aggressive. What it should say is like, wake of bodies left behind me as I get all of those results. So, I think that self-awareness of that good day, bad day framework, it's just incredibly helpful. So awesome.
Yeah. I love that. I actually didn't know about the two views, Dale, on Insight. So that's really, really cool, because I think it helps people not be so attached to this strength, right? Like, I'm fiery red and I'm going to hang on to that fiery red in every moment. It's like, what are those moments that we need to let go a little bit and choose a different color or choose a different option? So to our conversation earlier about resilience, it's about just grabbing all the colors you need in the moments you need them. So Hogan's very similar. So it has what we call derailers, which I mentioned earlier, which are those things, those personality traits, which can really get in your way under uncertainty, stress, pressure, etc. And what I really appreciate about Hogan is it not only shows the leader which ones show up for them, but what level, like what's a likelihood, or like how risky is it, right? So we all had to have a low risk of a lot of these things showing up, but what really matters is the high or the moderate risks, and those are the ones we really pay attention and try to develop mitigation plans around it. So knowing this is a high risk for you, what are situations that might trigger this, and what are some options that you have? So really getting that self-awareness, like so many of us have said, and building a plan and practice.
Mm. I've always loved that about Hogan, Lori, that there is a derailer component, so that we can see what we might need to watch out for and how much we might need to watch out for it based on the risk level. I was also pleased to know that that's true about Insight. See, we're learning something about one another's measures. Within HBDI, there's the profile of what your preferences are under normal circumstances, but also where your go-to thinking is when you're under stress. So that's a beautiful thing to see. The other thing that's very helpful, though, is looking at it on a team level. So if you find that under stress, your team is very elevated on looking at only the facts when they're trying to decide what the next course of action should be, and they're running into working with a client who's much more oriented toward the what ifs in the future and how are people feeling about things, the risk level can be really high that you're going to have a major disconnect. So looking at it at the risk for you as an individual, but also your risk as an aggregate, as a team, is something that HBDI can really illuminate for you.
Super helpful. I know those team insights are something on the HR side, right? That we crave, that like making meaning of all of it when people come together. I said a lot about the sort of resilience part of the PR6. I guess the only other thing that I would add to it is thinking about it as it truly is a snapshot point in time. And it's meant to be sort of get us in tune with the early warning system. I'm a big visual person, so I think about it's the paying attention to the light on the dashboard of the car before you're broken down on the side of the road. And so it's really about the measurement that you get from doing the assessment. Is it's going to take each of those 6 areas, and it's sort of going to plot where you are now. And it also gives you, what I think is really cool, a momentum indicator, which gives you an idea of right now, based on your responses, is your momentum trending toward improving in that area, or is it actually going in the opposite direction? So, and that can really help as a coach when we're using that and trying to say, listen, let's pick like 1 or 2 things to work on. We're not going to work on all 6, but it's really getting into those early warning indicators, which I think is something that a lot of other assessments miss. It's like you kind of, it's easy to fall into that thing of like, oh, I am this way and I've always been this way. And I think that part of it right now, depending on the role you're in, the organization that you're in, those things can be, as you said, right? It depends on kind of the day and the situation. So so that part makes it really interesting for me too. Okay, here's a really good question.
Early warning indicator. That's a really, I mean, that's a cool. I haven't heard that in a lot of assessments, so I didn't know that. And that's so powerful in order to, like, how early can you notice it so you could actually intervene and do something different? And the earlier, of course, the better. So that's really something I haven't seen in assessments, Jen. I'd love to
Yeah, and you know what I think, I mean, I can, sharing personal story here for this one for myself is I think about, we talk a lot about burnout, right? Again, talk about an overused, phrase, which I hate because then it can water down the people who truly are experiencing burnout. It's a thing. But when we use it as a throwaway thing, oh, I'm so burned out, it really takes away from the importance of that. I think oftentimes we think that burnout is people, missing work, missing deadlines, they're exhausted, they're slowing down, their cameras off, they're not participating. For me, when I got in tune with my early warning system, my burnout is dead opposite to that. I am like, when I'm approaching burnout, I am hell bent on showing that I've got it all together. I'm like overachieving, driving force, so it's important it's such an individual thing that my early warning system. So when I find that I'm going into that overdrive, that's where I need to tune in to myself. It's not being checked out, right? It's just such an individual thing. And yes, I have a light on the dashboard of my car right now that I'm not going to talk about. I think it's an oil change, but go ahead, Dale.
I was going to say it's your strong D is coming through when you're experiencing.
Everywhere I go, there I am. Like I said, I'm a D.
You can make this into a confessional, right? Like, what are our colors? What are...
Totally. So this question is interesting to me. It comes up a lot. It's one of the sort of pitfalls of assessments. How do you keep your assessment or the sort of results from it from turning into a label or a liability? The term weaponized came up in the round one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I could jump in first because mine's an easy answer. Because Hogan has such comprehensive data, it's got 3 views. There's 28 scales across those 3 views. It's really hard to get pigeonholed in one of those. So that's kind of the benefit of having so much one of the benefits of having complex data. So oftentimes, what the clients take away are like, what are those themes? What are those so whats for them? And more often than not, because of some of the language, I'll change the language to meet the client in the moment. So we don't, Hogan doesn't have that challenge. I know some of the other like more sticky assessments have because of the colors and letters. So I'll just throw that out there.
Good to know. You avoid labeling because it's so complex and nobody can grab onto a label.
No one grabs onto 1 or 2 things. They're like, okay, we're actually not going to grab onto this. We're going to make our own language. So I just change it.
I love it.
Yeah. Lori, that's been my experience with the Hogan through and through, that sometimes you just translate it to what's meaningful for that individual. And it is pretty intense and complex.
Yeah. And use their words. Yeah. Well, how is it for you, Julie?
Well, for HBDI, it's interesting because part of why it can become popular in one large organization I led talent for, it became the measure to use because it was being used from top to bottom and people were beginning to recognize the themes and it became a bit of a shorthand. Again, it's important to reflect on it as a mirror and not a camera. In other words, this is something for you to think about. How does it show up? And yes, it's helpful that people understand it, and that it is readily accessible, and the language is pretty simple and direct and straightforward. But we work really hard not to say, yeah, I'm a red for all time, or even I'm a red and a yellow. So that's not the point. The point is, how are we thinking as leaders with our whole brain? How are we thinking as a team? How are we interacting with our clients, where we're covering all the ways of thinking about this situation, or thinking about how to innovate, or thinking about how to make our way through this change?
That's great. For insights, I think I mentioned this already, but the whole idea is that you lead with all of the colors. And so when you get your report, it's very robust. And then there's a graph. And that's where people always want to flip to see, like, what color am I? But you actually can't, like, the document doesn't say, like, this is the color you are. It shows you a graph that basically is a scale of 0 to 6. And anything that's above the midline, which is 3, means that you lead with those color energies. And so some people have 1 color above that midline. So it's probably easier for them to say, like, I lead with sunshine yellow. But, more than half of the respondents in the whole insights database lead with 2 or 3. And so in that case, like you can't just say I'm sunshine yellow. It's like I lead with sunshine yellow and cool blue and fiery red. And I really think that whole ethos helps kind of break away labels, because the framework like doesn't really allow you to pick one color. It forces you to think about all of the colors. And going back to the blocks that Jen was mentioning, I think when you have that visual representation, we instruct people to kind of turn them sideways. I really wish I had them right now, but you can show what are the colors that are above the midline and what are the colors that are below. And so you see the order, and then you see the shape of it. And then you have a sense of like, okay, this person, leads with these colors. And so again, it's more holistic as opposed to, just one specific label, which is part of what I love about the framework.
I knew the colors of insights. I did not know that they were like fiery and sunshine. And so thinking about sunshine yellow, again, thinking back to my worst days, I'm like, oh, that is not a description that someone would use for me on some days.
They added the labels to the colors a few years ago. It has not always been like that. But it's a useful tool in facilitating, because you can say like, what comes to mind when you hear earth green, or what comes to mind when you hear fiery red. I think though it can also like, attach a connotation that might be more negative in someone's brain. So I know I'm supposed to be defending insights, and I obviously think it's great, but like any framework, there's obviously, strengths and weaknesses to it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I would say just touch on, from the DISC perspective, that is something that I hit hard when we work together with teams. Two things are true at once. I am a high DI, and that label means something about me. And so I don't want to put myself in that and say, I'm only and forever and always that way. And we're going to use that as a shorthand to learn the model and really understand the behavior. So we have to be able to hold those two things. And the shortcut I give people is to avoid this sort of label or weaponizing. If you put I in front of it or you in front of it, then right? So I shouldn't be using it and saying to someone, oh, you're being so whatever. For DISC, right? Conscientious, right? Which is like the opposite to my style. If I'm labeling someone that way and I'm sort of like judging and assessing their behavior, that would be a misuse of that. On the PR6, it's really such a different cut. I think the only chance that this would have, I haven't seen this yet play out, but I could imagine it might. If you imagine with a leadership team all doing this type of, resilience assessment, it's kind of taking that deeper cut, right, into, sort of 6 domains of their life. And so there's a huge amount of vulnerability that you're, kind of already bringing into that. So we wouldn't want someone to do then is to turn around, a few weeks after that, knowing that about someone, and use that in potentially a negative way to sort of call someone out. And the power of that, right? It's both and. If I know that someone, has shared with me that their lowest of the 6 categories was health, right? And I'm getting Slack messages from them at midnight, I'd be like, hey, I really want to support you in this. Like, how's that focus on health going, right? So I think it all is a matter of like intent and the context of how we're sort of engaging with people on their results, and also being willing to share your results. I want to actually ask that for a quick second. Is it common for you in your use of these assessments that people are sharing their results with other people? Dale, I'm assuming with yours, it is within your organization.
Yeah. So we would never, I would never share it on someone's behalf. I share it with the person, and then we do share like a wheel. So like if you're in a team building session, you're going to see where people fall on the wheel. Yeah. And then, sometimes we've led sessions where some of the goals are like, we want to figure out how to work better as a team, but also with our cross-functional stakeholders. So then I go to those individuals and I ask, can I plot you on the wheel for this session? And I typically get a yes. But one of the like actions coming out of it is like, please share your profile with your closest colleagues. There's like a whole people management section on how to manage this person. So like share this with your people manager, because now you have this common language where you can work together and drive, better working relationships. And so I think people tend to really lean in and buy in. And so I don't know how many people actually share their profile, but I hope most people do, especially with those they work closest with.
Cool.
within organizations, we've always been very careful, not just with HBDI, but others, to get people's permission to share, even in a team building context. That said, I think might be challenging for people to feel like they can say no when they're going to a team building and they know that that's part of the focus. So I add that caveat. What I will say, though, is that when people are able to get a paired report, which HBDI offers, they can get a clear sense of where they're likely to have great conversations and where they might be challenged and how they can address that. So I love that about that measure. And obviously, in that case, you would both be giving mutual permission because you're entering into having that kind of paired discussion. I think that sometimes why a measure like DISC or an HBDI is chosen by an organization is because it's easily understood. Yeah. It can feel isolating if someone's like, wow, I'm the only person in this team who thinks about structure. I've also seen it, though, be very elevating because people think, oh my God, we need Mary's help here. Mm-hmm. And we need to pay more attention to what she's saying because we've been thinking with just half of our brain as we do this work.
Yeah, Julie, that's so important, especially when you think about thinking preferences, like being able to share that and saying, oh, okay, this is why we might not always agree on these conversations, or maybe this is why we've had some tension. So it gives people like this shared language, which is not judgmental, that they could use. Okay, you're an R and I'm a D, or the different languages that emerge, and it creates like a lot more connection and conversation in teams. So, in terms of sharing, I think if it's a sticky tool that like your whole team is using, absolutely share. For Hogan, I would say share it with context. So after every Hogan debrief, we always put together a development plan. So I will encourage my clients to share the development plan with their, of course, manager and team. And then, of course, what are the key insights from Hogan? I think sharing the entire Hogan is probably not as efficient or effective of time, but what are the key parts that matter? Absolutely share them because I think that could give so much more insights to the team and figure out better ways to work together.
Yeah, that's great. So that it's like personalizing that. What are you taking from it? What are you going to go do about it? And where do you want other people, to support you in that? Julie, I love how you're calling out that potential for isolation. I have a client right now of 34 leaders. When we did the metrics and the breakdown, they only had 3% of the team represented in the DISC model, in the C and the conscientious. So that's the, slower paced, analytical, detail oriented. So wow, is it leading to some good discussions in terms of, what they need to do to be able to understand that. And then also recognizing that those 3% of those people are kind of like fish out of water in a lot of cases when you're in an organizational culture that is very opposite to your natural tendencies. Okay, quick little story hour here. Curious if any of you have an example of, one of those, your favorite sort of aha moment, or working with a leader or a team where you really saw that the assessment helped to have more of a result than just an insight, something that actually they went and did something with.
I had a team who was working with a stakeholder who thought very differently from them. And the big breakthrough was they were anticipating a meeting where they were needing to influence and get a yes on an important decision. And it completely turned around how they presented their case to this person. And they got a yes, and away they went.
Wow, that's a win.
We had 2 employees who were really butting heads, and we looked at their profiles and realized they actually lead with the same exact color, where they thought they were complete and total opposites. And so it created, a way to move forward with a framework that, they both understood, and language that they could use to have more direct conversation.
I love that, pairing it with the language as well, like giving them the tools that they might not have that language accessible for them. I have a client, and I have a couple clients that are kind of fall into this category, who was recently hired by his organization to come in and be a change agent. And he, went guns a-blazing, but he was moving way too fast for the organization. Organization was more process focused, a little bit more traditional oriented, and there was some friction with the team and some frustration on my client's part. So a lot of his derailers came out, this bold derailer, which is like where confidence becomes overconfidence, or mischievous, where like great ideas become manipulative. And it was causing, like, eroding that trust even more, which when you're trying to create change is exactly what you don't want to happen. So by debriefing as Hogan, it was like eye-opening for him to like see the story play out on the in the Hogan report, and he was able to understand, yeah, these are strengths of mine, but you know, the organization is very different, and this is kind of what's happening. So that conversation really helped him gain that awareness, and we developed like that language. Like, how does he start to communicate with certain stakeholders that like think differently from him, and how do we start rebuilding that trust? And the result was, yeah, the change happened at a slower pace than he wanted, but he was able to bring the stakeholders along with him. And the project is moving, and he's got a lot of really great momentum, and he's learned how to shift behaviors, which has been really, really powerful.
Wow, talk about a powerful insight if you're in the world of change management, to be able to take that and go to, you know, any future challenge as well. That's amazing. So I think about one senior leader in a tech startup did the PR6 for the team, again, looking for those sort of like kind of team insights. And but the biggest awareness was in his own results, where he scored very, very high in tenacity, very, very low in health. And what that made pretty obvious was that sort of like push it, grind it out, you know, productivity at all costs, sort of over functioning approach. And I think what's most impactful is when you can take that, again, in the right, safe, trusted team environment, facilitated conversation, when you can take that and be able to share that, and then be responsible for the impact, or, you know, the wake or whatever that you set as a leader, and led to conversations about prioritization and delegation. And do we have the space to speak up and say, like, whoa, like, too much, right? What are those examples we're sharing? Some of those like cultural norms in the area of tenacity, right, where people hold it as a badge of honor, you know, all the great things you can accomplish, but like, what's the impact to the person on the back end? So the report does a really great job of unpacking that. And then what my clients get also is access to the Driven app, which is basically it's a app you put on your phone, and it's just got like daily resources and videos and tools and prompts and things like that, again, in all the different domains, to be able to reinforce and create some new habits and mindsets, you know, around each of those too. So yeah, I live for those aha moments, right? I know you guys are probably all the same. Okay, we're almost at time. I don't even know how this went so fast. Okay, here's our like battle it out. I know we've been agreeing a lot with each other, but like, just for a moment, pretend you actually want to beat the other person. So here's our sort of final question. If you could wave a magic wand and change how organizations use assessments, what would you do differently tomorrow? So we'll go in the same order we started with. So Lori, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thanks. I think my lower competitive on Hogan is showing up, because I'm in my higher agreeableness, because I'm loving all this. So in terms of what I would change, I think two things. One is less is more. I think there's so many great assessment tools out there. I would encourage organizations to pick like the 2 or 3 that really align with their talent strategy, and really use them. You know, one for leadership development, one for team building, and you know, and maybe a couple more. And to use them consistently in the organization. What I hear so often from leaders is like assessment fatigue. It's like, oh, another one, right? What is this going to tell me? So that, you know, they're less ready, and you know, and you're not able to kind of like you're not able to like give the tool as effectively. So I think like really be very strategic in choosing your assessments. The second thing is get more out of your assessments. So assessments aren't a one-time only thing. You know, personality-based and thinking preference-based assessments don't change over time. So I would say pick it up again when you're, you know, at key moments like performance review time or promotions, when the leader's contexts change. Bring back that assessment, and you could gain a lot more insights from them at those points. So. That's what I would say.
So good. It's like, dig it out of I physically have mine in the drawer. I'm old school like that, but dig it out of the drawer, the digital file or whatever, and revisit it. I love that.
Yeah.
Great. All right, Dale, What would
Those
you
are
have us
great.
change?
I think for me, just given where I sit and how we use it at my company, I think we've done what Lori described, which is like we picked one. We have myself and one other person who are trained facilitators. If I could wave the magic wand, I would just be able to like do this as part of onboarding. Every single time someone comes into the organization, they get the Insights Discovery Assessment. We sit down, we walk them through it, we help them understand where they fit within a larger team context, company context. Who has time for that? It's just, I think like that, this framework like takes time to comprehend and digest. And so if someone can create more time in my day and can help me scale in that way, I am like so ready for it.
I'll take that magic wand too. Spread a little bit of the time fairy dust over here too. All right, Julie.
Well, I love Lori's and Dale's wand. Who wouldn't want something strategic and focused? And what I will add to that, I'm also super low competitive on the Hogan, Lori. So this is very hard for me. I'm a big both and kind of person. What I will say though is go deeper and keep unpacking insights, especially for leaders. Think about your team. Think about what each of them needs from you based on who they are and their whole self.
Well, now I'm going to also sound like a both and person because exactly what I was going to say. My magic wand would be just that we stop chasing the insights and that we really go deep on looking for the patterns and interrupting the patterns. I'm big on pattern recognition because I think once you can name a pattern of behavior, then you can intervene and say, where is that working for me and where is it's not, and then try something new. So I think it's so powerful that way. Okay, I don't know if we battled it out. We did, I think, draw some important distinctions. I hope everybody listening learned something new. I certainly did about some of these assessments. I want to thank each of you. Real quick, let's go around. What's the best way if people do have follow-up questions and want to learn more? Where can they find you, Lori?
Yeah, you could reach me at email@lorizorn.com.
Okay, Dale?
LinkedIn. I'll see you there.
Okay.
That's the fastest place for me as well, LinkedIn.
Yeah, same. You can find me on LinkedIn, usually mouthing off about something. So I am so grateful for you all saying yes to this. It's been super fun. Thanks everyone for listening in, and go learn something new about yourself today. Go find an assessment. You never know what it's gonna reveal. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.